Here, let's watch this.
Images like these coming out of Gaza
Oh my God, it's so loud. I'm sorry.
shocked the world. But here's what some journalists on Israeli television have to say about them.
כשאנחנו רואים את התמונות של ההפצצות, של הבניינים ושל הגופות מעזה, בפעם הראשונה אני לפחות אומר, who cares, זה לא מספיק, זה לא מעניין, זה צריך להיות הרבה יותר חזק.
Independent reporting on the devastating impact that Israel's military campaign has had on Gaza's civilians is largely non-existent. And Israeli media ignored the country's actions in the occupied territories long before October 7th. There's even an expression for the Israeli press's long-standing attitude: quiet, we're shooting. We talked to veteran Israeli journalist Gideon Levy about why much of the country's
goat.
media establishment,
More like Godian Levy,
chooses to either ignore or glorify the suffering of Palestinians.
You have to be part of the dehumanization of the Palestinians. You don't have to show them as human beings. You don't have to tell the story of their tragedies and catastrophes. You can really ignore them.
When South Africa made the case that Israel has been committing genocide in Gaza, it showed the UN's International Court of Justice clips like this from Israeli media as evidence.
אז אנחנו צריכים שיקרה האסון הזה כדי להבין שהפלסטינים זאת קבוצה מיותרת, כדי להבין שיכול להיות שמה שהם צריכים זה נכבה 2.
See, over the last decade, a large network of right-wing media outlets has emerged in Israel.
It's pretty funny that they like will deploy Nakba as a very real thing that happened only when talking about like only when talking about like punishing Arabs. It's really interesting. It's like, oh, if you ask in the Western world, the Nakba never happened. It was just a war, you know? But internally in Israel, it's like, oh yeah, the Nakba did definitely happen and it was fucking awesome. And here's some more of that. Thank you very much. Just fascism.
And its coverage explicitly dehumanizes Palestinians.
Imagine if Arabs said, "Dude, let's do a Holocaust 2 Electric Boogaloo." Israelis really get away with everything. Also, Arabs didn't do Holocaust 1. Israelis did do Nakba 1. And in many instances, it never stopped. Obviously, that would be unacceptable if fucking Arabs said that. You sure Benny Morris told me they did? Yeah. Benny Morris holding on to that mufti like without openly saying the exact same things that Benjamin Netanyahu did that got him like a shit ton of hate, understandably. He was holding on to that mufti. He was holding on to the mufti line so hard. It was crazy. It's like, no, the mufti, the Palestinian fucking grand mufti that the British put in charge, he was a pivotal figure in the implementation of the fucking implementation of the Holocaust. Benny did get away with a lot of bullshit because of how objectively bad Mr. Bonarello was. Mr. Morell was so fucking openly stupid in that conversation, so devoid of facts, that like Benny Morris did get away with a lot of shit that he was saying. I mean, I called it out. Like when he was like, a Syrian runs the Human Rights Commission. So obviously you can't trust the Syrian. The Arab mind is very tricky. You know what I mean? He said some fucking unhinged ass shit.
מזה, רובם כמובן בהתחלה מכחישים כל קשר לאירוע, ובאמצעות כלים ויכולות מסוימות אנחנו בעצם מצליחים להוציא מהם את ההודעות הראשונות.
But have these new outlets really changed the country's media landscape?
The only difference between the right-wing media and the mainstream media is in the cover. Only the cover is different. The right-wing media...
I have a friend who said D did nothing wrong and Finkelstein was constantly ad-homing. I don't know how to respond. At a certain point, you have to ask your friend, like, do they actually care about genuine analysis, or do they care about the mere appearance of, like, their side winning a debate, even though on the appearance front, their side did not win the debate either, realistically. there was virtually there was like no fucking actual facts presented by Mr. Bonnaroo. Like genuinely none. And I combed through it for 12 fucking hours. There was a rehashing of certain points that Benny Morris had made prior. But most of what he did was simply just straw manning the positions that his interlocutors did not actually present, refusing to hear anything that they were saying and then provide like a counter to them. No retorts. He said the fish wharf was a Hamas base and cited the IDF over Guardian journalists. Yeah. I mean, you're talking about a person who is like a fan
Analysis.
of a dude who legitimately said transfer of people is not necessary. Like, it does not imply violence.
You're doing right now. Then there's a backlash, and then you say, and they only look at the backlash.
Did Israel accept the? Wait, hold on. Well, let's just cycle
one side of the cycle of violence.
In 36, did Israel accept the Peel Commission that partition was necessary and the land would need to be split?
Yeah, which with, by the way, a provision to kick a bunch of the Arabs out of the proposed partition.
Because the Brits had said that it seemed like it was an unworkable thing, right?
Well, there you go, right? It would have involved violence.
It would have involved transfer of people off of property, not necessarily violence.
Yeah. Like, the moment that you say it involves a transfer of people that's not necessarily violence, I mean, you've lost the fucking plot. It's basically saying, like, Manifest Destiny is not violent. The Armenian genocide was not violent. It is genocide denial. Inherently. And I know this from personal experience growing up in Turkey, where the Armenian genocide is taught as a lie, where the official stance of the government and the official education is that Armenians were simply displaced from their villages and sent to Syria by force, not through violent means, but it had to happen because it was a time of war and the Armenians were collaborating with the Russians. That is literally how this is taught in schools. Okay? Oh, you found it. Oh my God. This fucking person found the clip that I was talking about. That's so incredible. This is literally what I was looking for.
All these people disagree with me. I enjoy talking to, like, outsiders.
Like, I'm being friendly with you in a conversation, but I think that it would be morally permissible for, like, people of color to murder people like you in society. Like, I think that your moral views are actually fucking atrocious.
Ooh,
like, they're really abhorrent.
I don't advocate.
You do advocate genocide. You already admitted to it. You already admitted to it. You said that you would advocate state
only
sanction.
if they are aggress on us first.
No.
Aggressing on us first.
You would aggress on them first by forcibly deporting them from the country. That's what you say. Those are your political views.
Second.
Yeah. So that's aggressing second is not aggressing. So I think that a colored person, as you would call them, has a morally sound argument to literally kill somebody like you because of the political views that you advocate for.
Dude,
it's not even this part though. This is not the part. This is not the part that I was referencing. I know for a fact that in this debate, he openly fucking says, he openly walks through the steps, I'm pretty sure, where he recognizes that, I mean, he gets the white nationalists he's talking to recognize that, like, there is no peaceful ethnic displacement. You cannot transfer an entire population. You cannot transfer an entire population through peaceful means. That always will happen with the threat of violence. You cannot do that peacefully. There's always going to be people. Even when he's objectively better than the Nazi, he still says that so-called colored people are like the only ones who off white people. Yeah, I mean, he's always at a reactionary slant. It's minute 3, something on the original video. A couple of us linked it during your react. Yeah, I played that clip when I was looking through the debate, but I saw the killing part and I just skipped the rest of it.
Has no PC, no political correctness. They can call to exterminate.
Are you surprised by his stance? No, back then he was cooking white nationalists all the time. People thought that people, myself included, thought that he had like had a genuine change of heart and was like a former libertarian who had recognized the flaws in his thinking and the errors in his ways. I mean, dude, one of the worst things I've done is defend them, defend this man, Destiny, on fucking Chapo Trap House's podcast when I went on there to be like, no, he's not like a racist shithead.
Eliminate all the people of Gaza, which the mainstream media will not feel well about it. They want it in a more elegant way. So, for example, don't call it a genocide. Kill as many as you want. Tens of thousands, 100,000, but don't call it genocide, because this makes us feel not good with ourselves. The killing itself doesn't bother.
This partially explains why not much independent reporting has even made it onto more traditional Israeli news channels. Another reason? Many Israeli news outlets rely heavily on information from the military and often butter up a
Gideon Levy is not a Zionist, dude. What the fuck are you talking about? What?
I will tell you.
What is the most insane thing someone has said during an interview? Oh, dude, I've seen this before. What do you mean? This is an old ass. This is a meme at this point.
officials to maintain that access.
Now, the army created a very sophisticated way in which, if you want information from the army, you have to behave well to the army, otherwise he will exclude you. You depend a lot on the goodwill of the army. And the army has the biggest PR unit in Israel. And they do it very sophisticated.
Israeli media will often air footage like this, given to them by the military, without scrutiny or additional context.
במלחמה זו הבנו את חשיבותו של צה"ל ככוח המגן של העם היהודי בארץ ובעולם.
Journalists also allow military spokespeople to regurgitate government talking points with little to no pushback. Like in this next clip, where a military spokesperson justifies the horrific conditions that
Brown people should all be shot in the street. You all right? You all right, Chatter? You good? You good, big boy? No? What's happening? Talk to me. Let's help you out. Let's walk away from the ledge. You know? My depression med. Okay. Well, here's what we're not going to do, okay? Since we're having a mental health episode, we're not going to advocate to, you know, kill brown people. I think that's not a good thing to do, right? Just because you're depressed doesn't mean that, like, you know, other people need to suffer too. Oh my God, is this a normal occurrence in here? I have a lot of haters that come in here and say stuff like this on a regular basis. I think they're just like attention seeking. Some of them do end up walking away from that ledge and no, Not shot as in killed. Shot as in camera shot. I love brown people. Okay. Good one, dude. Nice, man. Well, you'll probably get a site-wide ban now, for the record, for saying that.
Palestinians face in an Israeli prison.
בתא אפשר לראות שמדובר במיטות קומותיים בלי מזרן ואין אסלה, רק בול פגיעה בחושך כמעט מוחלט לאורך היום. כולם אזוקים ברגליים כל הזמן, ואחד לשני.
בהתנהלות הזאת, ככה הוא צריך להיות. אוקיי? מה שהיה ב7 לאוקטובר לא יחזור.
Sometimes journalists repeat these talking points themselves, like in this report on the bombing of Al-Shifa Hospital.
אבל בצה"ל אומרים שאחרי תקיפה כזאת מסיבית בלילה, הם רואים שחיקה ביכולת של החוליות של חמאס לנהל לחימה במהלך התקלויות.
Since the media heavily leans on the military in its reporting, officials can dispense information.
Al Jazeera all staged. Yeah, it's funny that you're saying that because they're just showing how the Israeli government and Israeli media stages a lot of this stuff. So they're not even like showing footage from Al Jazeera. They're showing the Israeli military's own footage. If you looked at if you for a second took a deep breather and then recognize what was on the screen, you would know that they're just showing footage from the Israeli military while also talking to an Israeli journalist by the name of Gideon Levy, who is great, awesome. So, you know, why even respond to these people? I think all people can be saved.
Information and even disinformation that shapes the media narrative in their favor.
The outcome is not journalism. Here it's definitely not journalism. You can see how everyone reports the same thing, so you understand that they got it all by one source, never checked anything.
That's partially how the military helps ensure Israel's public keeps supporting war, occupation, and apartheid.
All people can be saved sounds pretty evangelical of you. Yeah, I'm talking about fucking the reactionary poison that we learn from birth. Not fucking some kind of like biblical assessment that I'm making here. Okay? Is this? You can't send me this link. There's a word in it that's like...
When journalists actually are reporting from on the ground in Gaza themselves, they're usually embedded with the Israeli military. And their reports often echo military propaganda.
במשך שנים ישראל מדברת על בית החולים שיפה ועל הקשר שלו לטרור של חמאס, והנה אני חושב שההוכחה הניצחת נמצאת עכשיו. אנחנו מביאים אותה בפעם הראשונה למעשה. הצבא חושף את המנהרות האלה, בדיוק מה ששמענו לאורך כל השנים האחרונות על מה שקורה מתחת לעזה בכלל ולשיפה בפרט.
International media outlets largely agree that Israel hasn't provided the...
And I think that would be...
Yeah, I guess I'm asking for like the mechanism by which you increase the overall whiteness of the country. Are you going to make people leave, or are you going to kill people?
Oh yeah,
or...
definitely, yeah. Mass deportation. I'm not like people frame it like we're like genocide and whatnot, but that's not the case at all. It's just mass deportations.
Let's say they don't want to be deported. What's your next step?
Well, if they don't want to be deported and they meet us with violence, we'll meet them with equal violence.
Okay, so yes to genocide then. I don't know why you said no to that. So,
no.
There you go.
Genocide.
Well,
no,
so
absolutely
we have
not.
well, yeah. So we have mass deportation. What?
Let me look up something. To make sure I'm working with the right definitions.
Okay, well, we don't have to call it genocide. We can call it the mass killing of a bunch of people of a certain race, I guess.
It's only mass killing if they resist.
Which
they only die if they resist.
Okay, but let's assume for a minute. Okay, so I don't know how many real life people you know, but let's assume for a minute that somebody that has been in this country for possibly generations doesn't want to just leave and go to some strange place. That probably.
It's pretty funny because like this video is from 2018. Okay, April 24th, 2018. And the irony, of course, is that he is now making this exact same argument, but for Israel. He is making the exact same ethno-statist argument that the white supremacist, fascist is talking to him, he walks him step by step and explains to him how what he is talking about is 100% violent. But if you look at his conversations now defending Israel, he is saying the exact opposite argument.
Probably going to resist, right? Along with a healthy number of white people as well. So, or like, I don't want to say genocide, I guess, since that's like a trigger word for you, but like killing all.
Also, people going, look at his chat. They're all like, making jokes about the other dude. Yes, many people in that community that, some of those people that were in that chat at that time are in here now. Okay. That's something you have to remember. Others have changed their minds alongside their favorite content creator because they're very malleable.
All of these people is something that has to be on the table for you, right? State enforced violence.
Yeah. Sure.
Okay. Okay. So there's that part. Why do you want to do an ethno-state? That's the next I need to.
So yeah. The point is, I mean, there it is. That's it. In like 1 minute, he very quickly destroys the argument that you can do a peaceful transfer of an entire ethnicity. You can't. And he's right 6 years ago when he's saying that. And he's wrong now that he's making the exact same argument that the Nazi was making for Israel.
The evidence to conclude that Al-Shifa Hospital is a Hamas base.
Like if you go back to 2018, you will find Destiny owning Modern Destiny on a regular basis. Like nonstop. To which he will say he has changed because he learned more. But that's not the case. The only thing he learned is more talking points to defend his positions. He is a mercenary. He has no principles beyond just, increasing his own social status. That's it. Debates are simply the way to do it. Yeah, there's a TikTok channel dedicated to that. Lamau's just clips of old D making arguments that defeat modern D. Yeah.
The reporting of these embedded journalists is subjected to a process known as prior review, a practice that allows governments to shape media coverage. In exchange for on-the-ground access, journalists grant officials the authority to review their reporting before it's published. The United States helped pioneer this practice during the Vietnam War, with the aim of shaping the media narrative to maintain public support for that war. And so, Israel is continuing that tradition today.
The whole narrative that is told to the Israelis about this war is a fake narrative in the way that only one side of the reality is being shown here.
It's not just embedded reporters who are having their work checked by the government. The military censor unit reviews the reporting done by many news programs before stories make it to air. And some programs will even publicize that the unit has approved their stories, something the law doesn't require them to do.
We have very critical journalists who can be very, very sharp against the economical situation, against the political situation, against parties, against the prime minister, everything. There is one holy cow, that's the army.
Journalists with a more critical view of the military are afraid of being considered out of line by the public, which polls show supports Israel's campaign in Gaza. Also, it's important to remember that all Israeli men and women are required to serve in the country's military. And this relationship between journalists and the public didn't start last year.
Everything is more intensified in conditions of war. Nothing is new. You don't want to criticize the soldiers in times of peace or occupation. You don't want to tell stories about crimes being committed by soldiers in normal times.
I'm here because you changed, Hasan, not because I did. The trans stuff kept me away. Then October 7 happened, and I found out that you had changed. Now here we are. What? If you think my position on Palestine changed after October 7, you are completely and utterly unfamiliar with all of my prior commentary on the matter. The trans stuff kept me away? What trans stuff? No, your trans stance changed? What, you think I was like... I've the clip chimp shit? Oh. I think he's talking about like the now 11-year-old satire attempts that I made where I did make transphobic jokes that has been resurfaced time and time again, even though I have mentioned it in my own personal commentary, talking about how my mind changed over the years. No, he doesn't believe it. He's saying he was just doing a bad job of trying to explain it.
Times because nobody wants to hear it, because it's our sons, it's the friends of our sons and the sons of our friends. We don't want to hear those things. Please.
Over the years, some Israeli journalists have even been attacked by people angered by their reporting or perspective. And
Come on, Hasan yells a good intention chatter. Thanks, Gray Names, for ruining chatter. Wait, what? I'm not even yelling at him. The fuck? What? Did I yell at this person? What do you mean?
Palestinian journalists are largely excluded from Israeli media.
None
Besides
of the
rare
things that you
exceptions
guys
like
think
972
happened.
magazine, most outlets don't hire them. And even before the current escalation, Israel's media has only rarely critically engaged with the country's decades-long occupation of Palestinian territory and its treatment of the people who live there. Here's an example. When Israeli human rights group B'Tselem released a report in 2021 that described the country as an apartheid regime, it received coverage all over the world, except from outlets in Israel.
Yep.
The fear of the mainstream public opinion is very, very strong. But you know, it is such a mutual process that you don't know what comes before what. It's a vicious circle, because the journalists by themselves already believe in what they do. At least the military correspondents, for sure, they are really admiring the army. Once I would like to hear that a certain commander is not so good, did some mistakes, failed in something. Nothing. All of them are brilliant, all of them are adorable, all of it's ridiculous.
And that's why today, even as Israel continues to bombard Gaza, the Israeli media prioritizes national unity over covering the government's genocidal acts.
Look, when Russian media is covering the war in Ukraine, nobody believes it, because we know it's a media run by Putin and you don't get the realities through them. Here it is much worse, because we don't have a Putin. We chose to be the Putins. And that's really depressing.
That's a really powerful take. Yeah. I've said something similar before about how, like, in Russia, you don't really have a democracy, but in Israel, for at least the Israelis, you do have a democracy, right? There are options. And Israelis choose deliberately